we'll try to be as quick as possible, but when you talk about any single point in your life, there's like 10 different reasons why I'm here. But I always thought I was a poor kid from Kentucky. And he's crying. He's like, dude, please take me to the hospital. And if I get teared up, I mean, it's just like, it's very emotional for me to even talk
Yeah.
about being there, flying back from Denver to Kentucky. So my mission was like at that time, and I'd had cancer in the past, not just testicular, not the terrible cancer, and I caught it early enough where no chemo, no radiation. So I just popped it out, and I'm going to be good. But that gave me time to sit under and think about how I wanted to help people,
Yeah.
and help people a little more directly than the law. Then you have my brother's situation. I'm like, oh my gosh. Of the million that get treatment, the relapse rate we've seen historically are 30 to 40%. Still not very good numbers to either support or deny those numbers, but the few studies that we've seen that are 10 years old for anorexia specifically, it's like 30 to 40% relapse rate.
Welcome to Digital Health Transformers, a podcast series. In this podcast, we explore the dynamic world of healthcare innovation, one conversation at a time. I'm your host, Bryce Barker, and today we have an all-inspiring guest at the forefront of transforming the healthcare landscape. We have a special guest with us today, Brandon Johnson, co-founder and CEO of Very Health. Brandon brings an impressive background spanning law, business, and entrepreneurship. He previously served in legal roles at the Johnson Law Firm, WeatherCheck, and Richardson and Richardson. In 2022, Brandon combined his expertise with his passion for transforming mental health care by co-founding Very Health. Very is pioneering in virtual eating disorder treatment, offering compassionate, personalized care from a dedicated team of experts. As CEO of Very, Brandon is leading the company's mission to close the gap in specialized eating disorder care through virtual treatment. His journey and insight provides a unique perspective on innovating this critical area of mental health care. We are excited to have Brandon join us today to discuss his approach to virtual eating disorder treatment and its potential to expand access to this life-changing specialized care. Brandon, welcome to the podcast. We look forward to exploring kind of how virtual care can transform treatment with those struggling with eating disorders. Thanks for joining us today, Brandon. How are you?
Thanks for having me, Bryce. I'm great, man. That's a great introduction. More than I deserve.
No, you definitely deserve it. I always love kind of when I get to go to the intro and hearing kind of the roles that some of the entrepreneurs and leaders in this tech space have come from, because it's really everything. I mean, as you're from role, we had a past podcast with another attendee, and he started his role working in fast food, and just grinding, and then has now become the CEO of a large tech company. It's just so interesting how it doesn't really matter where you start. It's about your vision, and it's about your drive and kind of your will to change the world. So kind of getting into this first little spiel of it, I want to kind of touch on your personal and your professional story. Brandon, I know you've had, as we just kind of mentioned, a very diverse career journey, transitioning from legal roles to becoming the co-founder and CEO of Very. Could you kind of share your personal experience or moment that motivated you to get into the mental health care field and specialize in eating disorder treatment?
Yes, I can. We'll try to be as quick as possible, but when you talk about any single point in your life, there's like 10 different reasons why I'm here. But I always thought I was a poor kid from Kentucky. The only way I knew to get out of being a poor kid in Kentucky, and that I would be a doctor for a long time. And where my first job was the certified nursing assistant, which is the crappiest job in the world, literally. And I made, in a small town in Kentucky, I made it about 4 weeks working night shift before I was like, whoa, this healthcare thing is wild, dude. This is, people dying. It was just, it was very shocking to an 18-year-old young person trying to, think about dedicating their lives to the medical field, and like, this is what it is, man. And maybe I don't want to do this. And then I took biology when I was a freshman at Western Kentucky University. And I was like, I don't think I'm not gonna do this for 7, 8 more years. I had had some success in high school and really a strong interest in politics and a strong interest in, um, potentially being a lawyer. So I really shifted that way. And then I almost bought a restaurant. And I was so hyped doing pro formas. I was like, oh my God, this is what I need to be doing. So I ended up kind of having a quarter life crisis and traveled around and moved to Hilton Head and then moved to South Korea and taught English for a year to try to expand my horizons on, more than America. I love America, love it, but wanted to step outside of that echo chamber and experience a different culture, Eastern culture, and then moved to Los Angeles. I moved back to Kentucky. I was like, this is a little too slow. So I moved to Los Angeles before I started law school. So then long story short is, in law school, I just wanted to do business. I worked with Papa John's. I knew John Schnatter. I got to help on that. As a young attorney, really, they gave me a lot of ability to have access and to have input. And that was really cool. And that started my own law firm and worked and grinded through a lot of litigation before I really got to do what I wanted to do, which was work with businesses and entrepreneurs and doing that. So fast forward about 4 or 5 years, and my brother, who is more handsome, way smarter, just a great kid, great heart, and he's struggling with alcoholism. And I mean, bad. I mean, really bad. He's in his bedroom and I love him and he's worked for the company now and he helps us and he's on his own path and he's sober now. But it was a very dark time for my tenure. He's 10 years my junior, and he's just, he's in his room drinking wine. And to the point where he's dead to us. He's dead to our family.
Not the same person.
Not the same person, not interactive. And came home a couple of times and went back and forth and seeing this pattern of him going from emergency room upstairs to the psych ward, to the psych unit, out to nothing, right? Like he didn't, there's no rehab set up, there's no therapy set up, and then relapse. Okay, second time we have the rehab set up. So boom, from emergency room, inpatient, in person to treatment, which is great. And then couldn't get a therapist after that, relapse. Third time, emergency room. I was there. I'll never forget. He came out. I was like, man, please take me. He's crying. He's like, dude, please take me to the hospital. And if I get teared up, I mean, it's just like, it's very emotional for me to even talk about being there, flying back from Denver to Kentucky. But I was like, all right, let's go. So I took him to the emergency room again, inpatient again, started getting him treatment lined up again. And he went and he really wanted to change. And then we had his therapist lined up better too. So after rehab, he had his therapist and I'm like, okay, that was really hard. But, over time, he's been sober now for over 2-3 years. He's getting his master's degree from Elon University in awesome. Higher education. But from that, I was like, I kind of dovetailed that with reading a book by the Almanac of Novel Ravikant. Okay. Novel Ravikant is an entrepreneur, he's founded Angels List and many others. And he was talking about how software can change the world. Software can change lives. So my mission was like at that time, and I'd had cancer in the past, not just testicular, not the terrible cancer, and I caught it early enough where no chemo, no radiation. So I just popped it out, and I'm going to be good. But that gave me time to sit under and think about how I wanted to help people, and help people look more directly than the law. Then you have my brother's situation. I'm like, oh my gosh, and then there's the software side of things of like we can, and probably Richard Thayer's book Nudge. Like there's ways that I can take a software and help nudge people to the direction of recovery. We can take them from death to their family, to life in their family, from not being able to achieve their dreams to achieving their dreams. And then the last factor is my wife. She's my co-founder. She's an eating disorder psychiatrist. She's a certified eating disorder specialist. She's a child psychiatrist, child and adolescent psychiatrist, adult psychiatrist, and pediatrician. So she's triple board. She's integrated health in her own self. And I was like, instead of taking the whole world of recovery on, let's do this, that there's nothing. You have an eating disorder, you go to a higher level of care because you're finally that bad that someone's like, you have to go get treatment for anorexia, bulimia, binge eating disorder. And then after they go get treatment, what do? They go back home. And they're the same milieu, without a therapist that knows what they're talking about, with a doctor that may be telling them to lose weight. It looks like you gained some weight, you need to lose some, like, terrible relapses that are horrible, very terrible disease. People die from this. 10,000 people die per year at minimum. This is pre-COVID numbers. And that's 10,000 families that are lives are impacted tremendously. And over 5 million people suffer from eating disorders, and only about 1 million get treatment every year. Of the million that get treatment, the relapse rate we've seen historically are 30 to 40%. Still not very good numbers to either support or deny those numbers, but the few studies that we've seen that are 10 years old for anorexia specifically, it's like 30 to 40% relapse rate. So there's a couple different things that we can help. One, we can help people once they're at a higher level of care leave and get back into their life and stay in sustained recovery. And two, if we can catch them early before that they get too bad, which takes a lot of education, it's a very hard thing to do, we can save people quicker. We can get people before they ever get too bad, before they ever need higher level of care. So we have a dual opportunity in a blue ocean where there's not a whole lot of people that have a nationwide program that can help people into recovery. You have a lot of focus on the IOP and above PHP. So IOP is the intensive outpatient, partial hospitalization, because the insurance companies pays day rates for those. But once they're out of there, what do? You know, when you don't have an eating disorder informed provider at all. We set up very, very boots on the ground services at first and had to develop a services company. And then we finally last year in probably September, I think, launched our community. So that's the first thing we're trying to start to bridge the gap in treatment. So the community has over 200 people in there now, about 25, 30 professionals, about 200 patients or people that need help. And we give them education, we give them peer support, we give them group support with a professional, and we give them meal support with professionals. So now they have access to these things, even without being our patient, for free. And not only that, but then we connect them to other resources. So we're big into like, all right, you have a program, bring it into our community, let people see it. If they like it, they can go get your program, but giving people a home that they get recovery. So instead of relapsing, they can go to this community. Then we'll start bridging the gap between the two. And this is what this conversation is about, why we're probably interested in talking to each other, is eventually we'll take our EMR and our community and our clinical data collection and start really narrowing that down into our mobile app or web app or whatever, we're going to probably, it doesn't matter. We can get into the nerdy stuff in a minute, but taking that program, making it a home for recovery, whether you're in higher level of care, you can come here. If you're too early, we're talking with lots of therapists, dietitians, primary care providers. Send them to us right now. Instead of waiting 3 weeks for them to get into psychiatrists or 6 months in some states, send them to our community today. Let them start
learning.
Why wait
for a crisis?
Why wait for a crisis? So it's a long-winded way of like, that's where I came from, poor rural Kentucky, no way out, but doctor, lawyer, married a doctor, and then kind of smashing these things together and trying to help people save lives and help people into recovery.
Yeah. And I absolutely love that journey. It's such a natural, it's not something where you even really seeked it out in a way. I mean, it's just something that, with your brother, it presented a challenge and a heartache in your life, and you found a way to not only help your brother, but help others. I mean, that's a beautiful story. That's what it's about. What are some of the unique challenges that you guys face in the specialized healthcare sector? And did your background kind of prepare you for any of that? Like, obviously, having the experiences with your brother, but did any of I would be interested in any of the legal aspect, help you kind of prepare for kind of what you face in that specialized healthcare sector? I feel like it might.
I swim with sharks all the time. Right.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be swimming with sharks, you got to become a shark to be able to be in that water. And I know how to protect our company. I know how to protect our company from people that say they're going to do stuff and they don't. So that's how we've been able, that's one big thing is like people are all excited about startups and they get in, they don't realize how much you have to work.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of C-level people that forget how to work. And they want to delegate everything. There's no place in the startup for people that don't want to do the work. So I think that's the biggest thing from a legal perspective. And then also like looking at the field, like I do my research and looking at where these big companies have failed, like making an employee and like access to healthcare is our most important thing. And then cutting off their employees and making them independent contractors and stripping away their healthcare. I'm like, I'm not going to make that mistake.
And then wondering why they lose their employees. It's like, wait, yeah,
I'm not going to make that mistake. So we're independent contractor based. We're trying to pay people better wages. We're trying to listen to providers, but I don't think a lot of the legal stuff prepared me for that, other than the contractual thing and saving us lots and lots and lots of money,
legal
because
fees.
I
Yeah,
can do a lot of the work, and then I can be like, hey, you're an expert. I've done all this work. Where is this wrong? And the bill, instead of being $80,000, is 8,000. And I
right.
think that's really helped us to extend. Other than that, I'm not. The other thing is, I've been a founder in the past of like legal companies or like real estate closing companies, and I run my business on Entrepreneurial Operating System (EOS). It's Traction by Gino Wickman is the book, and I just think that has really helped me to be able to apply that to this company, and being able to help providers and folks along that don't really have any business experience on a very simple business plan to execute that. Um, that was some of my background from being an entrepreneur and starting other kind of entrepreneurial funds that I've really, wasn't very good at EOS in the beginning. I'm much better now. And, it's taken us about 2 years to catch our stride. This is like actually our 8th quarterly meeting we just held. And now we're hitting all of our, we're really tracking along, like, setting KPIs, achieving those at a high clip, doing important work, not just doing work for no reason. So I feel like it's sort of a superpower is harnessing your focus. But now I'm kind of outside the realm of what the past experience of being a lawyer has helped in this field. But those are some of the nuts and bolts that help me, and that's how I help other entrepreneurs too. That's what I do for other entrepreneurs, other than like exiting and doing private equity or venture capital deals and what stuff like that, but really protecting the company and making sure that bad actors or people that maybe they were good actors coming in, but then they get to go away
Yeah,
without
yeah,
hurting the company.
yeah, and that's very important to me. Obviously, being able to set that back to have a strong foundation is key, right? And then being able to have your wife who's also in the field, I'm sure is a resource as well, to be able to bounce things off of her as when it gets into the actual clinical care stuff. So that sounds like the team that you guys have curated over there is really key as well, being able to have that strong foundation, curate a team that you trust, that is startup based, where it is a full team effort, 100% bought in, whether you're the CEO or whether you're a sales rep. It's a team effort, and when it comes to these startups, and being able to share your ideas and push not yourself further but the whole company forward. Like, everybody, let's get the guy. It's almost like pushing a car with no gas in it, and get it to the gas station, filling that thing up with gas, and then you take off, right? But the hardest part is getting to the gas station.
And if you
So
have dead weight, I just want to point out that if you have dead weight in your company, it's like somebody sitting on top of the car, like pointing and laughing at everybody that's pushing the car. They're adding extra weight, and it's really terrible for a company.
it's
It's
disheartening to
really
other employees.
disheartening,
Mm,
exactly. Especially if they
yeah,
have any kind of large equity stake, and it's like, I'm working twice. It doesn't work. Like,
doesn't work at all.
if I give any piece of advice to general listener, it's like, get rid of the dead weight,
Yeah,
quickly as you possibly can, because it is
yeah,
demotivating.
for sure,
The
100%.
other part is hard is technology, the technology component of it, of like, I'm a lawyer, my wife's a doctor. Like, we're not trained up in technologies. Now we're young enough to where we're able to adapt in things, but
Yeah,
finding the right tech partner has been uh, challenging. And then also having to build a services company in a highly regulated market, which helps me being, I can highly regulate, I can work around that. But then trying to do the tech side now, we've had to search for the right tech partner. And it's not just a technology partner that knows technology, but they need to know technology. They need to know mental health care. They need to know several components. So we've really been searching hard for that right party to help us that has a baseline understanding of psychology and therapy and some of these different things. So we've been able
yeah,
to identify a few, but there's not a lot of those folks out there.
yeah, for sure. There's definitely not. And that's one of the aspects that we, even at OSP, why we try to be so robust, and um, the areas we've covered, where we say, we've covered everything from when I give my sales pitch, I always, um, and I go over that first slide. It has the areas we've covered, and the people are like, wow, that's it's a lot. I'm like, well, it's important that I share with you that we've covered everything from specifically mental health or home care or psychiatry or dental or and all these things, because I don't think people realize how, when it gets into the technology side, it needs to be if you have a company like Varier, sometimes it needs to be customized for you to really get what you want out of it and to really have the efficiency you're looking for. Some of these out of the box tools that you pay a ton for, they're not the right fit, and it is a custom approach, and you've already kind of built your company custom in a way. It doesn't make sense to pull in an out of the box tool, build something that fits your company 100%, that your employees have input in, that when it's being built, that you have input in when it's being built, that you don't have bells and whistles that are not needed. And yeah, it's such an important tool. It's something that I love to focus on whenever when I do sales pitches and talk to startups and other companies, where it's like, hey, don't be scared by custom. It's better. This is something that is why, my dad always told me, you know, never buy a pair of cheap shoes, right?
Amen.
Because one, your feet affect your back, they affect your entire body. So spend money. Basically, the whole thing is to spend money on what matters. Spend money on important things. Don't cut corners on important things. And that's such an important thing. And kind of moving along here and getting into that digital health technology and its impact on lifestyle. Um, you guys are at the forefront of virtual eating disorder treatment. Like you mentioned, there's not a lot out there. You guys, there's not a lot of options. There's not a lot of options for mental health for people who come out with addiction and mental health, and definitely not when it comes to specialized disorder care like you guys deal with. And I guess my question is, how do you see kind of the digital healthcare technology transforming the space of mental health, and in particularly like the eating disorder, and kind of changing the accessibility and the openness to people to be able to get help when they need it and not kind of face that stigma or the worries that might keep them from getting the help they truly need?
Well, man, the stigma is something that we're going to have a very hard time. I mean, I think with the stigma component, making it, I mean, you see men's health advertisements on the television where it's like discreet. Like that's one of the top three advertising things, like discreet, discretion
Discreet.
about this. So like I do think that there's an element to that where if you have something that's accessible on your phone, you don't have to leave to go to a doctor's office, but you can go and get your treatment in your dorm room or in the
Mhm.
privacy of your home. Makes it more accessible. But um, where I see our ability is informing people. We
Mhm.
have a screener. We've had 20,000 people take a screener. About 19,998 have an eating disorder or have strong indications of eating disorders. We've converted very few patients. So the beginning of the process is just, you know, you're not
I'm
alone.
fine.
You have
Yeah.
issues. What you eat, what you don't eat, if you exercise or not, these all have, play to your mental health every single day, and they cause you concern and maybe undue concern every single day. So how do we get you into a community or into a place where you're safe, where you can get information, where you can be around people that are like you or may have the similar thought patterns of you, um, and that way they're destigmatized, right? You're in a community where people feel like you. Like one of our guys that doesn't have an eating disorder, he works for their company, but he ran a 5K and then he ate like 4 or 5 donuts after. It was a donut dash and he ate a bunch of donuts. He's like, dude, I felt
Yeah.
terrible about myself. Like, I felt like I overdid it and it was like a lot of mental
Mhm.
weight over eating a few donuts after a donut dash. Like I'll crush 4 donuts. I don't care. Like
Yeah.
I try to have a balanced diet and diet of what I consume entirely. I try to have that, but it affects so many people. So the people that have disorders, trying to find them, trying to bring them into a community, and then trying to nudge them, right? Nudge them in the right direction on different behavioral health things. So a tool that we're going to build or in the process of building out It's going to nudge them to track their food. It's going to nudge them to check in. How are you feeling emotionally when you ate? Like, are you having an episode? Do you feel like you need a binge? Let us know. Like, go step in front of these behaviors that can take you down a slippery slope, and instead, hopefully, build you up into recovery.
Yeah.
So that's what we are, and then eventually step you into uh, care and the treatment if you need it. And if you
Right.
don't, that's great. We have other types of programs. If you can self-heal, that's great. And I think like where the shortages in mental health, there's not a lot of expert providers. So what you're seeing in the marketplace is going to like more of coaching, but coaches that are supervised by therapists, by the expert therapists,
That's
and
good.
having the programmatic set up, and then having the back end to track. Are we doing these things that we say we're going to be doing? Are we doing
Yeah.
them right? And then I think where AI comes in is like you have generative AI to be a guide, to be now we've had issues in the eating disorder space with Tessa and National Eating Disorder Association trying to do away basically
Mm.
what happened. See, what had happened was had a rules-based platform, and then they took the parameters off and implemented into a generative AI in there, and they started giving diet advice and fitness advice, and that's just you can't do that with eating
You do
disorder
that.
patient. You can't, and they got crushed for multitude of things, but that was one of the. It's still being talked about. It's just a 60-minute piece about it last week, or 2 weeks ago. So from our perspective, it's like, how do we build intelligent generative AI, put limitations on that AI to help people through the process and to give them nudges without giving them terrible advice? And how do we
Yeah.
make sure limitations on that? So that's the things like, for example, that we're working on right now as far as once we build this platform, we get people moving in the right direction, we give people the tools that they need, we spreading that word, we have the underlying services, and then trying to bridge that gap with coaching, with education, with free resources, with by answering every phone call. I don't care if you're in a state that we serve or not. We're going to help the best we can. We help find you something. And if you're on Medicare in Wyoming, we may not be able to find you anything, unfortunately, but we will do our best to stay on top of what's available to help whoever's going to give us a call. I don't care if you're in the state that we serve or not. That's always been our mission, is to help 1 million people. And it doesn't mean we treat 1 million people. It means we
Right.
do whatever we take as an organization to help these people the best that we can. And we can't
Yeah.
help save every human being, but those are some of the ways that I sense we're moving in the direction of trying to bridge this gap in
Yeah.
treatment. But there are some big problems that are, that
Have
I'm
to be
not addressing.
overcome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
insurance. We've had great conversations with some great insurance companies. They're like, yeah, we'll pay for your platform. Yeah, let's start figuring this out. So I'm hopeful. But
Interest is
there's some
there.
interest is there. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think for
Yeah. And it should be. I think like if these insurance companies don't see the vicious cycle that addiction, mental health, eating disorder, all of these patients fall into a lot of the time. It's a vicious circle that is sometimes never ending. And the amount of encounters and visits they have in ERs and hospitals and it's insane. And if we could just break, and I know that's it just that sounds so easy. Let's just break the cycle, right? Break the vicious. But it's like if we could just when they go into an ER, if they come out and they do have these things set up with aftercare, where they're not just being sent right back to the home where there are triggers right there. I mean, it's like you're preaching all of this. You're going to set them through, and even inpatient. I come from before I started with OSP, I come from the addiction and mental health world myself, specifically addiction. And in Mississippi, I live in Birmingham, Alabama, and we dealt with Medicaid and Medicare. And in Alabama, there are literally two hospitals, maybe three hospitals that are state run that can accept inpatient Medicare, Medicaid. The only other hospital is in Meridian, Mississippi, right over the border. It's a 200-bed facility called Alliance Health, and that's who I worked for. And I was in Alabama, it was just unbelievable when I would go into UAB and go into these huge hospitals and be like, "Hey, I can take your Medicaid patients," and they'd be like, "What?" what are we doing? It's just like in Alabama and a lot of some of these states are a lot further ahead and good on them. Alabama and some in the South is not the case in a lot of these places, and
The
it's
Southeast is a desert, man. I'm from Kentucky, and the
yeah,
Southeast is a desert. It breaks my heart.
it really is.
There's not much that we can do about it other than establish Colorado as a market, get Texas, some of these other markets that are pretty good paying, and then leverage the insurance companies for, and this is not even to your point yet, but I'm getting there,
Yeah.
to leverage some of these insurance companies for a nationwide contract.
Mhm.
Then we can start spreading out in the Southeast. Then we can try to target specific Medicare. My wife is like, we're doing Medicare.
Yeah.
We're doing it. I'm
It's
like,
the
okay,
need.
that's a big task, but it's going to take us some time to step it up and get that out because the reimbursement rates in some of these places, you just can't pay your experts.
Oh, it's insane. It's criminal. It's
It's sad.
and what's worse is like not that people who have insurance and that who can afford a premium insurance is not important, but the people who can't, the people who are on Medicaid, they have nothing. Those are the people that I mean they have no chance if people like Very and people like Alliance and other companies like yourselves aren't trying to push these boundaries forward, man. They are doomed, and it's terrible. It's sad as a country, and even just as like a human being. It's just like it's just kind of eye opening if you just kind of take your step back and pull yourself out right from your head and just look at it from kind of an overhead view and be like, man, are we okay with this as a
I
as a
mean,
country?
yeah, part of me has to just ignore it. And I hate that. I
Yeah,
mean, this is an admission, but part of me is like, all right, I'm driving this boat and I've got to go through these waters before I can get to those
get to
waters.
these waters. Yeah,
But 9 out of 10 people, well, because we started out private pay, more than 9 out of 10 probably, but at least 9 out of 10 couldn't pay. Now we're in insurance, so maybe it's closer to like, maybe it's 7 out of 10 we can't treat or we can't help, for inquiries from the Medicare, Medicaid. But in Colorado specifically, we're already working on some of those contracts, some of those one-off contracts to try to get in there and get a foothold established. And to have those relationships with those folks here, particularly as we're already in insurance, basically all insurance in Colorado, and trying to start to flirt with that and see how that feels, single case agreements and whatnot, and see if we have providers that are able to take. And we also do free work. We work with Project Hill, who does
that's fantastic.
basically scholarships, and they go through the part of financial, and they do a thorough job on financial. And those are some of the most awesome cases that we have. I mean, I don't want to get into any specifics of the patients, but there's some awesome cases of people from rural towns that are going on to do big things and they have this problem. And if we're able to help them solve this problem, they're going to be huge benefactors to society. So that's
Society.
what yeah, so like our dietitians have stepped up, our therapists have stepped up and done some. Erin does, I think she has at least two patients that are of her 40 that are free, which $0.
Yeah.
Um, and then, we're trying to balance that with building a company that's bootstrapped.
Right, yeah,
Um,
because and it's not like any of these companies don't want to help the underprivileged and the population, but at the same time, you have to run a business, and you can't lose sight of that, as you very well know.
Margins and
Um,
insurance are tough enough with the provider market being as it is. So,
yeah,
and I'm not here to talk about just margins. I mean, but you have to, if the company doesn't work and it goes out of business, then people are
you're not
even more
helping
emotional.
anybody. Yeah, you're not helping anybody or yourself. So kind of moving on to kind of the kind of health tech and resolving eating disorders, what kind of innovative approaches, and maybe this is getting more into specifically of what Very does and kind of what the process looks like, what innovative approaches or technologies do you guys use to address the unique challenges posed by eating disorders?
I don't think we do very much unique this time. I mean, the fact that people can do virtual and we can treat people
Mm.
virtually is
But that's
it's good. I mean, it's helpful, right? It saves people
yeah.
time, it saves people when people are coming at a higher level of care, they need usually a dietitian, a therapist, and a psychiatrist or medical doctor every week for a period of time. And
Mm.
you take three doctor's visits where you have to travel, sit, go into, you're looking at 5, 6, 7 hours a week where you're trying to reintegrate into your life, but you got to sit in waiting rooms and whatnot. So that's one. That's the most foundational. Second is developing a community and trying to have a home for people to come to. Not huge technology lift for using Circle. Eventually, we'll build our own community because it doesn't take a lot to build a community. And then stack that on top of the EMR. And that's really, I think, where our technology is going to be. It's just a kind of a fully integrated place where even if you're not a patient, you're still in the community. You can have access to these digital behavioral intervention tools. And that's what we're really going to try to start bridging the gap between care and the community is these things that you can do self-guided, self-helping, and then step to where they're guided with a coach. And then the next step is to have the treatment. So we're trying to bridge that gap from where I have an eating disorder, but I don't have anything. I don't even know I have an eating disorder to treatment. And, the first step is to understand. Then the second step is to maybe learn more about it or get in the community and talk to people about it. And then maybe I'll try this tool out, or I'll try this lesson out, or I'll try this technique out, and just trying to bring them closer to treatment. That gap is so wide. Like outside of money, outside of anything, getting someone from, oh, maybe I have a problem to treatment is a
Huge
far.
deal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and no one jumps over that. No one
Right.
jumps from like, oh, well, maybe I have a problem to treat.
Right.
People fall into this gap of like, no matter how far you can jump, you're going to fall into this gap.
Yeah.
And you got to put those the next part so they can eventually get into treatment, or maybe they self-heal. I mean, there's people that stop drinking, that don't need, but getting them to the process, I think is what, and I'm really not speaking to the what technical technologies we're using. But right now we're using an EMR, we're using Circle for our community, and we're using a data collection company and provider communication company called Sequel. I think what our product is just smashing those together, putting good guardrails on what these folks are supposed to be doing. Putting good guardrails on how to help nudge people. Marketing, whether it's the emails, whether it's the messaging within the community. So that's what we're really focused on, is helping people cut from, oh my God, maybe I have a problem, to treatment or something closer to them not having a problem.
Yeah.
And the main technology, I mean, people are dying for community. People are dying to be part of something. People are alone. People are, loneliness kills more than anything else.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm not trying to avoid your question about specific tech. I named the technologies we're using, but
Yeah. No.
I think just planning on, and once we make this, throwing in the generative AI, helping the chat quicker, people being responded to quicker. I have a problem. What if it's 6 p.m. on a Saturday night, which is when a lot of these people are thinking about these problems, when they have time to, after work, after their kids are in bed. You should see, like, we had a couple $1,000 budget on our screener tool, and we run out of Google on the budget for the ads between like 12 and 2 in the morning. They would just get
Really.
eaten up that early in the morning
Yeah.
because people are late, they feel bad about themselves, they've just binged, they've just purged, they've just done something that's triggered them. So being able to be more responsive to people, being able to get them quicker, being able to support them faster, those are all things that are very important to us.
Yeah.
What tools or technology will we use? It's going to be just a myriad
Yeah.
of those coupled together.
Yeah, and now and as you guys are innovating those technologies as well, those are only going to become more. And I see you guys having like you guys are, you've already mentioned, you guys are going to have your own platform and community and application. I see that kind of in your future of the very app where you kind of has everything. It's all inclusive, that you click on your phone and go right there and have a perfect workflow of, do I have an eating disorder, all the way to, as you mentioned, hey, I need treatment tomorrow. How do I get it? Like,
And
I need treatment right now.
the technology side is getting easier and easier, right? The technology
Yeah.
with the AI, it's getting easier and easier. Now, what's not easy is creating a good app,
Oh yeah.
creating a
Takes time.
usable app with. So I think we're going to spend a lot of time on that too, the user experience, making sure that you went to a doctor's office before. Okay, I fill out 2 pages with a pen every time so some of that stuff we want to eliminate to make it easier.
Yeah.
Every block for an eating disorder patient is people are going to fall off, and a tremendous amount of people are going to fall off. Like every block is like Velcro. Like if somebody's running and you have a block, they're just going to stop in their tracks and they're not going to go any further. So making it more of a
Yeah.
slide and making the user experience easy, and those are some of the things that
Seamless.
we're really focused on.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's cool about that too is like once it's like it all of this, like it can be transformed to all of these mental health issues. It doesn't have to be, in the future, as Very continues to grow, I mean, you guys could expand to all mental disorders, addiction. The options are endless for you guys, especially when you guys get this technology and the technology comes together, because it's such a, I think when people think virtual care, is virtual starting to become kind of like a, like a second nature to us a little bit. But I think when it comes to like our care, when you do it, like I did I go to therapy, and with like these companies like BetterHelp and some of these that have come out where you can talk to your therapist. You just have a Zoom call with her. You talk to them right there on your phone, and you just have like a FaceTime with your therapist instead of having to um, get up, pull your insecurities together, get dressed, drive somewhere, sit in a waiting room, um, sit in a waiting room with other people, and then get in the thing and spill your guts to somebody. It's very emotional. Get back out and then have to drive yourself back home. It's like I don't think people realize how like different an experience it is to be able to go into your office or to go into your bedroom where you're safe and you feel comfortable and talk about some of the most like the most important and the hardest things that you're dealing with in your life. Like I don't think some people realize how big of a deal virtual care is, especially in dealing with stigmas, which we talked about trying to overcome. I think it's a huge way to overcome that stigma of where, hey, you don't need, you know what? I understand that you're just dealing with this. It's a lot right now. Don't even worry about, you don't need to go out. Just sit, go to your room, get your cell phone, which we all have. We're all obsessed with them, and let's just talk. Let's do it right here, just me and you. And it's such a disarmament to people who are very wound tight when you're dealing with the stress of an eating disorder or addiction or mental health, man. And I just love the approach of the virtual care approach and the 24/7 access. And it's like, hey, you come to me when you're ready. I don't need to force it on you. You come, well, but we're here. Whenever you're ready, you come to me. We're always here. Whenever you're ready, hop on Very. We're got you. Or hey, call us. And I love that aspect of it. Um, and I
I got
cannot
a quick
wait.
story.
Yeah,
I
go
got a
ahead.
quick story coming here. Because I'm getting goosebumps about it. Like I'm I work in numbers. Like my head works in numbers, like assessing. Like my family makes fun of me all the time. I'm like, there's an 87% chance probability of like this is how my head works. And I work in pot odds. And I moved to Korea and I was broke when I started teaching in Korea. So wasn't drinking. I was kicking butt at poker all the time, pot odds and playing conservatively and just smashing people. But I say all that to be like, this is how I process things. And I agree with you 100%. People are like, oh, but you lose things in virtual. You really, okay. All right. All right. I'll give you that, being across the table, maybe you get 5% or 7% or 9% more, but eventually we'll have technologies that pick up on perceptions that when you're looking down or you're looking away, you're not even, you're good. We're going to be better than even in
Right.
person. A lot of times because the technology is going to help us like read body language and different things like that we're going to be able to apply to videos. And I think that's going to be a hugely beneficial thing for providers. And then what you were talking about, golly, I mean, how much harder is that for the human being that's dealing with this issue to do all these things? 30% harder? So my pot odds are like no brainer. 5% less versus 30% harder. Okay, this is a no brainer. We got to do virtual, and that's where the market's going, dude. That is
Yeah.
where the market is shifting to because it's a better product. And people, I still think I say all that to like my major point when you were talking is like we're still talking about, oh, what is virtual is good. Some people are still talking about that. I feel like that's just as much of a topic of conversation, especially at the federal payer level and things like that. I think federal payers they're very much pushing for virtual, and I think the insurance companies are going to get rolled on that, which will be a good thing for healthcare. I think healthcare parity for sure. Um, I lost my train of thought, but I think the problem or the additional problems from the patients is what we're really trying to solve.
Yeah.
Making it easy.
And the other thing is that I think some people are thinking about when you hear people who've been in the mental health space for years and years and years, 30, 40 plus years, right? Is you're dealing with a different generation, which this might seem very like duh, right? But you're dealing with a generation now, my generation, who had we are technology sound. I might not lose a thing between this meeting or if I was sitting in your kitchen with you, Brandon, right? Like,
Well, how
because
much do you
why? Because
gain?
we're
Because
very much used to it.
you're in your own
Right.
spot. How much do you gain because of that? Like, there's no law.
Yeah.
You gain 10-20% on your ability to be, because you're comfortable in your setting and your environment.
It's also second nature of us having a conversation or having a FaceTime or having a Zoom meeting where it wasn't, that technology wasn't around back then, to where there was that learning curve or that transition or that kind of evolution, if you will, a little bit. Well, now it's technology is so, I mean, you think about it, I would be very interested. I mean, you could almost do every single thing, including run your business on your cell phone nowadays, right? Like, and like, I mean, short of a couple things maybe, but for the most part, you could probably go to the beach, sit on your beach, and almost run your business from your phone, or do your day from your phone. And it's like, um, why are we not taking advantage of that? Because we think we're going to lose 5% in the eye to eye contact or facial cues, or that doesn't make sense. And like you're just saying, okay, well, you might lose 5%, but you're adding 30% because the person's comfortable and they're actually going to open up to you and share what they feel instead of kind of closing down.
You're seeing seismic shifts, man. I don't think people realize it. Like, you have to, but if you pull back, like, the US is half the world's healthcare spend. Okay.
Mm.
Digital, the US is 1/3 of the world healthcare spend.
Yeah,
That is a big delta.
that
And
is.
I think people that do not have access are like, yes, I don't care if it's virtual. I just need access. And I
Just need
think that
help.
that's where the people
Yeah.
are speaking, the markets are moving, the markets move slower than the people. And that's why we're going to be on the forefront of that.
Yeah, 100%. That's well said. That's really well said. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure kind of exploring and very and learning more about what you guys are doing and what you guys are doing in the future. Your insights into kind of that transformative power of virtual care is eye-opening, and it's interesting to me because as somebody who we deal with direct solutions and deal with this, I always love talking and getting kind of perspectives like this from CEOs and from founders like yourself, where you kind of see what kind of the thought process from the business side of it as well. I really love that, and kind of your views on closing the gap and specialized eating disorders and care through virtual treatment. It's definitely a viable perspective that I think a lot of people should just give it a chance. Or if you are struggling with something or you're not sure about it, just give it a shot, because you might surprise yourself. And it's definitely not going to hurt anything. I definitely
You
don't
might
see it
mess
hurting
around to get
anything.
better. You might mess
Yeah,
around and actually get healthier.
mess around and get better. No, I love that. Yeah. So thank you again, Brandon. That was a real pleasure talking to you. I look forward to staying connected with Very and seeing what you guys do in the future.
Thanks, Bryce. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks.
See ya.